Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
You think they're going to keep baseball, Jack?
It's done, I think.
Hello, and we are back again with another episode of the GSMC television podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC podcast network, and I'm your trying not to morph into Howard Beale host, Howard Fletcher. And I'm joined as always by my trusted engineer, Jack the Black Pug. We are positively honored and thrilled and excited to be here with you once again. If you're new to the show, I'd like to give you a very warm welcome. Thank you for giving us a try. There's a bunch of stuff you could listen to instead of me, so we appreciate you for choosing to spend some time with us, and we aim to please. So stick around. I'm sure you'll hear something that you like. At least that's what I hope. And we want you to keep coming back. And if you're one of our loyal listeners, listen, you know how we feel about you. You are truly the reason I am here. So let's have some fun together today. We have another jam-packed show for you today. Alan Dershowitz. Well, he's gotten himself a lawyer for a good fight. I'll analyze some of the Emmy Award nominees, and I'll tell you some of the people and the shows that some of the media, Variety especially, have suggested were snubbed. And I will go over that. American Idol is going virtual, so we'll see how that one works. And I'll bring you news as it breaks. You know I love breaking news, and I will have some more news on Tenet in just a moment. And it also goes along with kind of what I said last show. But first, let's get started with some breaking Caesar Flickerman news. Stanley Tucci, one of my favorites, he's headed to AMC by way of Spain. The Hunger Games and Big Night actor will star in a limited series called La Fortuna, which AMC Studios is co-producing with Spain's Movistar and Mod Pictures. The thriller comes from director Alejandro Amenabar. He, and I hope that I'm pronouncing your name right, Alejandro. He's the director of Open Your Eyes and The Others, the Nicole Kidman movie, and who co-created the series with Alejandro Hernandez. So two Alejandros put their heads together and came up with La Fortuna. Inspired by the graphic novel, I'm going to screw this one up too, I'm sure, El Tesoro de Cines Negro, which means in English, the treasure of the Black Swan. I said that correctly. La Fortuna centers on Alex Ventura. He's a young Spanish diplomat who unintentionally becomes the leader of a mission to recover sunken treasure stolen by Frank Wilde, and Stanley Tucci plays Frank Wilde. He's a notorious adventurer. Anna Polvorosa also stars as Lucia, Alex's colleague in work and adventure. In quotes, I guess. Production begins this week in Spain and will move to North America next year with a premiere date targeted for later in 2020. Here's a quote. These days, shooting a series such as this one is a big challenge that our team takes on with an enormous amount of enthusiasm and responsibility, said Alejandro, the director, because I screw up his last name and I'm not going to do that anymore. La Fortuna is fundamentally about optimism and the will to fight. Alex Ventura's journey is also ours. We aim to fully succeed, but above all, we hope to offer the audience a good dose of excitement and entertainment next year, end quote. The cast also includes Clark Peters. That's my man who's in The Wire, also a podcast that I'm doing right now. And he recently was in The Five Bloods, a Spike Lee film that you can find on Netflix. Natia Miller, Cara Alejandri, Manolo Solo, Blanco Portillo, and Pedro Casablanca, without the A, just Casablanca. So, Alejandro is going to direct all 6 episodes of that. And I apologize for all the names I screwed up, but I thought you wanted to hear about Stanley Tucci's next project. I know I'll probably be looking for it. Now, here we go with some more Tenet is going to make its money back news. Tenet announced Wednesday that it has passed government approvals for a theatrical release in China, an indication that an official release date is now on the horizon. The film has released a poster in Chinese, swapping the English tagline, "Time runs out," for a clarion call to return to cinemas that roughly translates to, "Make every second count, invade the theaters." They're going, not trying to be subtle. They want to get your butt in the theater. Chinese cinemas reopened in regions at low risk for COVID-19 on July 20th, taking in $12.6 million in their opening weekend. Currently, around 44% of its cinemas are back in business, but they've been required to operate at just 30% capacity to allow for social distancing, as well as reduce their total number of screenings to half their usual tally. Additionally, guidelines for reopening released by the National Film Bureau requested that cinemas not screen films that are over 2 hours long. I mentioned that last podcast, which could potentially pose problems for Tenet, which runs at 2 hours and 31 minutes like most Christopher Nolan movies. Now, this directive was soon contradicted by Chinese authorities' subsequent approval of a number of films longer than 2 hours for nationwide theatrical release. Now, these films that they approved include Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Nolan's own Interstellar, and that's currently scheduled for theatrical rerun starting August 2nd, which as of this recording is tomorrow. I'm recording this on August 1st, as well as local blockbusters already in play like Operation Red Sea. Until the guideline is more formally lifted, it appears that cinemas in different regions under different levels of COVID-19 threat have been given varied amounts of leeway, or at least have been variously willing to stick their neck out and program longer films. All 8 of the Harry Potter films run over 2 hours. All of them. Trust me. But they're all currently screening as part of the Shanghai International Film Festival. Yet at least 2 cinemas in Beijing, which is the capital, said Wednesday in private chats posted to social media that due to the confusion, they currently didn't dare program approved, available titles over 120 minutes long, even the patriotic blockbuster Wolf Warrior 2, which runs 123 minutes. So they're not even willing to go 3 minutes over. I'm sure there are some theaters in China that are concerned about government interference if they run the wrong length film. So elsewhere in China, however, the film's rerun has already made $1.1 million since cinemas reopened on Monday. Tenet had to reschedule its release numerous times due to COVID-19 before Warner Brothers this week settled on the unconventional plan of debuting it internationally before it hits North America, and I reported on that last podcast. It is now prepared to open in around 70 countries abroad starting on April 26th, including the UK, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, and Russia. It will then premiere in select U.S. cities over Labor Day weekend from September 3rd. China is far and away the most important foreign market for Tenet director Christopher Nolan's films. Let me repeat that. China is far and away the most important foreign market for Tenet director Christopher Nolan's films. The Chinese box office for almost every film he's made as either director or executive producer has blown away earnings from other territories by a large margin. The only exceptions are Dunkirk and The Dark Knight Rises, for which China was the second largest market globally behind the UK, and Batman Begins, which hit the Middle Kingdom all the way back in 2005, when its box office was still comparatively nascent. of the Nolan-directed films, Dunkirk made $51 million in China in 2017, while Interstellar grossed $122 million there in 2014. The Dark Knight Rises grossed $52.8 million in 2012, and Inception $68.4 million in 2010. Films executive produced by Nolan have also seen strong showings in the country. They include Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice with $96 million, Justice League with $106 million. Let me repeat that. Justice League, which sucked, made $106 million in China. Transcendence made $20 million, and Man of Steel made $63 million. Okay, now, obviously, I'm going to talk about Tenet on this show because, as I said last time, this is one of my baby stories. However, this is why this is really important. Why is this on the TV podcast? Again, let me tell you why. Because last show, I said that if they could get China opened, they meaning the Warner Brothers and the film people, if those markets were open to them, along with this huge international opening that they have targeted for next month, for this month now, for August, what will happen is, in my opinion, we're going to see Tenet on video on demand in this country very soon, before Thanksgiving. I say probably before Halloween. That's what I believe. If, in fact, the virus does not blow up overseas and their numbers continue to stay stable and even go down, and more people go to the theater, and this is primarily important, and this is an assumption, okay, just because I like Christopher Nolan, and he's done well. But unless Tenet is an absolute bomb and it's a terrible movie, which is always a possibility, but let's just say it's of the same caliber as all the rest of his movies, most of them to date, then I think it's going to approach the 150 million total mark. Let's just use that for a number. I just think it's going to be a number that's going to be closer to 200 million, approaching $200 million than not approaching $200 million. And if it's approaching $200 million as we're heading into mid-October, look for Tenet on VOD near you, on video on demand, and look for it to be part of an advertised HBO Max package going into Christmas. Because that's what's going to happen, folks. And again, Tenet on the Tenet and probably Mulan, because I know Disney, you know, when I reported last show about this deal that Universal made with AMC, Disney was one of the producers. Now, granted, Disney owns some theaters too. They weren't so happy with that deal, and I won't get into all of that, the reasons for that. Nevertheless, why am I bringing Disney up? Because Disney, I believe, is going to do the same thing with Mulan. If Tenet takes off overseas, and it looks like they're going to at least make their money back, then look for Mulan to be right behind them. And now Mulan probably won't make as much money overseas as Tenet. Maybe so. The China, you know, we'll see what it does. It may do better in China than Tenet. We'll see. I do know this, or I do predict this, that when this is said and done, when they look back on this year, they're going to look on Tenet. Not again. This is the assumption. This is all based on the fact that on the assumption that Tenet is a good movie. If Tenet's a bad movie, all bets are off. It's just a bad movie, and this has just been an unfortunate year for Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers all the way around. But let's just say it's a good movie. I still don't think in any possible way they're going to make the type of money they could have made had this pandemic never shown up, this virus never shown up. But what Tenet will be known for is not as a failure or a movie that didn't make the money it could have made. It might be known as the movie that saved theaters. It might be the movie that got people to go back into the theaters. Still, I'm not backing off my paradigm shift preaching. I'm just saying that if there's going to need to be a movie of substance, a spectacular movie, a movie that people will take I'm not going to say they're going to risk their life to go see, but they're not going to go see Unhinged in the theater, okay? That just debuted over in London, by the way. They're not going to go see Russell Crowe in Hinged. You're not going to take your date there and mask up. You're not going to do that. You might do that for Tenet, and you might do that for Mulan if you're a big fan of that story. But I think that's what they're going to be thought of as in the case study. Tenet is the movie that helped save the concept of going to the movies. Well, okay, so that's it for the story now. I've gotten that out of my system for now. It might pop up before the end of the show. Who knows? Next, I'm going to talk about the Emmy Awards again. But since you already know who the individual nominees are, I'm going to talk about how the different networks or cable channels did as far as the number of nominations they received. And Variety ran an article of their snubs. There's always going to be this article that comes out of who got snubbed or what show got snubbed, and surprises. They called it Snubs and Surprises. So I'm going to go over their snubs and surprises, and I'll tell you whether I agree or disagree with them, and I may give you a couple of mine too. I'll be back in a few. Go do whatever you do during the break. Please listen to our sponsors, because that's how we pay our bills. And I'll be right back. Thanks for listening. Tired of me talking about Tenet? Yeah, I know you are. Stop wagging your tail. Okay, Emmy Awards. That's what we're going to talk about. Well, I gave you the nominees last week. Let me tell you about let me do some summing up here. The Emmy smackdown between Netflix and HBO has taken another dramatic turn as the Television Academy announced its 72nd Primetime Emmy Award nominations on Tuesday morning, as you heard last podcast. Netflix came out on top swinging with a whopping 160 nominations, followed by rival HBO in second at 107 nods. Although they came in number 2, HBO still had reason to celebrate, as limited series Watchmen scored 29 nods, the most of any program. On the comedy side, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel maintained its, marvelous showing at the Emmys, garnering 20 nominations, the same as last year. The leading dramas were Netflix Ozark and HBO Succession, both of which pulled 18 nominations. Now, this is the second time that Netflix has bested HBO. In 2018, the streamer ended HBO's 17-year Emmy nomination domination by landing 112 nods to HBO's 108. So I'm bringing this up because, as I say time and time again, Netflix is becoming the king of the small screen. And, while HBO, they make the best television in my, for my taste. I think they're the best at making prestige television. Netflix is not to be trifled with. They are the king. HBO Max is the great white shark. Last year, HBO grabbed the crown back thanks in particular to Game of Thrones, which helped the network pull down 137 nominations in 2019, the most ever in the network's history. The previous record had been 126 in 2015. But last year, even with the silver medal, Netflix still scored 117 nominations, and that was the most ever in its history. So Netflix is for real, and they are actually the reigning king because I believe streaming is king now. But with no Thrones this year, HBO was bound to decline from that peak. Netflix continues to ramp up its volume, which helps explain its rapid rise from only 13 nominations in 2013 till now. Last year's drama and comedy series winners, that's HBO's Game of Thrones and Amazon Prime's Video's Fleabag, ended their runs and therefore their award plays for 2019, leaving some key ballot spots open for the 2020 Emmy Awards. But that's not all that stood to shake up the nominations this time around. The coronavirus pandemic shifted the awards calendar, leaving the voting members of the TV Academy fewer than 2 weeks to sort out a record-length program, performer, and artisans ballot to make their selections. There is a lot of television this year, folks. And later on, I'm going to talk about some snubs, but there's really just not enough room to put all these people on the, to nominate everybody. There was some really quality television out there. And those selections were far from ordinary. While a number of repeat nominees and winners still made the ballot, from Amazon Prime Video's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel to Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale, almost every major category came up with a surprise. So, here is something that I pulled from a Variety article. Variety broke down the snubs and surprises, or their snubs and surprises, of the 72nd annual Primetime Emmy Award nominations. So, here we go. Here's a snub, according to Variety. Pose, the show. The second season of the ballroom culture drama did not score a second consecutive nomination this year. Lead actor and last year's Emmy winner, Billy Porter, did. However, the series nabbed some key creative award nominations as well. Unfortunately, though, it looks like airing its second season a year ago hurt the show's visibility with the voting members of the Academy, especially considering its third season could not finish production and air this summer as planned due to the coronavirus pandemic. While I'm not a Pose hater at all, I'm not a Pose fan. I watched the beginnings of the first season and I kind of bailed out just because it didn't hold my attention. I really I acknowledge its production value. It just didn't grab me. I think a show like Pose, and this is based off of, like I said, only watching 1/2 season of it, I think that I will put it in a category of, like, to make an analogy with the Academy Awards, like The Artist or Slumdog Millionaire. When you first come out of the movie, you say, wow, that was different. Give it the best picture of the year. And then a year later, you find yourself turning away from those movies when they end up on cable. How many times have you seen The Artist since it won the Academy Award? Not that much. Now, I'm not saying Pose is as much of a one-hit wonder as that, but I do think it benefited from the novelty factor in that voting. The surprise this year, according to Variety, is The Mandalorian. Disney Plus has broken into the Emmy race in a bigger way than many thought possible, with a drama series nomination for its Star Wars universe show. It must be the power of the Force, because while it was expected to nab many creative arts nominations, it beat out some heavy hitters and much long-running series for this coveted spot. Well, I don't know. I think the sci-fi genre very rarely gets recognized for being a best drama show. But the producers behind this, The Mandalorian, has some pretty big names attached to its production, and so it's not surprising to me that it came under serious consideration. A snub, and I think this is the biggest snub of the Oscars, is Rhea Seahorn for Better Call Saul. Now, here's something that I thought was very curious. I didn't realize till I read this article. Seahorn has never been nominated at the Emmys, but this seemed like it was sure going to be her year after a season of the Breaking Bad prequel that put her on a more equal ground with Bob Odenkirk's titular character, Saul. She navigated some tough emotional material, and Odenkirk himself spent much of his Emmy for your consideration interviews and campaigns chatting her up. She should have been recognized, and I was shocked that I didn't see Rhea Seahorn's name there. The surprise, they said, in that category was Zendaya for Euphoria. The star of the HBO teen drama has some serious, fresh new talent for the television Emmy voters. Playing the drug-addicted Rue showed off the former Disney star's range like no other role could, and she was rewarded, securing a coveted lead drama actress nomination, even over previous Emmy winners such as Nicole Kidman and Elizabeth Moss. Well, good for Zendaya. I saw maybe 2 episodes of Euphoria. I thought she was good, and it was nice to see someone new. A snub, they think, was Reese Witherspoon. Witherspoon had a trio of opportunities to be nominated this year. She could have been nominated for Big Little Lies, for The Morning Show, and for Little Fires Everywhere. But she failed to score any acting Emmy nominations. She did get one because she is an executive producer on Little Fires Everywhere, and that show was nominated in its category. She was on 3 very good shows, and she was good in Big Little Lies. Of the 3 shows she was on, that was the only one that I watched. All the actresses on that show were very good. Snub, I think, might be a little heavy-handed, but I'm sure she was disappointed because she had a lot of opportunities. The surprise they thought was Linda Cardellini, dead to me. My sister watches that show. She said it was very good. I have not watched it yet. But from what I hear, she and Christina Applegate go off. I mean, that they both are very good on that show. Applegate did get nominated. And I think that she might just be one of the people that there's just a lot of talent out there, and it's not her year, I guess. That's one of the reasons why I picked Applegate as my dark horse in that category, because I think it just might be her year. And a snub surprise, I put this in both categories, is the show The Morning Show. The Apple TV Plus drama scored a few coveted Emmy nominations, including lead drama actress for Jennifer Aniston, lead drama actor for Steve Carell, and supporting drama actor for Billy Crudup, but it did not pick up a drama series nomination. Carell's nomination also came as somewhat of a surprise. Prognosticators thought he had a better chance of getting nominated for Space Force, which he co-created with Greg Daniels. I don't know about that, but Morning Show did get some good reviews. Again, there's not enough room for everybody, so, you can't nominate everybody. So that was the deal. Now, the surprise was What We Do in the Shadows. The FX vampire comedy broke into the comedy series race for the first time with its 2nd season. Although beloved by the audience and most critics, it seemed like a longer shot for a nomination given the stacked race of returning nominees still eligible. I think that this is one of those where it just could not be denied. And it probably will not win. I think I picked it as a dark horse, but it probably will not win, but they couldn't leave it out because when everyone looked at it and said, it's just too good to leave out. And one of the showrunners and creators, Jermaine Clement, has been, not say snubbed, but not recognized for Flight of the Conchords or the work he did on Legion. And I think all those things together, and because it was on FX, and FX shows traditionally kind of get ignored, I think all of that put together made it the right time to nominate that show. The snub that they think is a snub, I don't think it's a snub. Russell Crowe in The Loudest Voice. Here's their blurb. The Golden Globe winner was completely unrecognizable when playing Roger Ailes in the Showtime limited series. Unfortunately, though, that proved not to be enough to follow the Hollywood Foreign Press Association love with an Emmy nom. Well, Russell Crowe did win, I think, a Golden Globe. Yeah, for that role, which I thought was a surprise. He didn't do a bad job. And they said he was unrecognizable. It's just because he had so much makeup and prosthetic on that he was unrecognizable. I don't think he was unrecognizable because of his acting. His acting was good enough, but it was a little over the top. It was what it was. It was a costume performance. It wasn't like Christian Bale's Dick Cheney in Vice. But, if you want to compare it, but it's just, hey, he didn't get nominated. He got a Golden Globe. Way to go, Russell. He also went on to make Unhinged, which tells me something about his artistic integrity. The surprise is Paul Mescal in Normal People. The newcomer won the hearts of audiences after bringing the role of Connell from Sally Rooney's novel Normal People to life for Hulu's limited series. And it turned out much of that audience were Emmy voters. He scored a freshman nomination in the extremely competitive lead actor category this year. Okay, good. Snub, I semi-agree with this. Aaron Paul. They said, like Witherspoon, Paul had multiple opportunities where he could have been nominated. He was favored for one, the limited series TV movie El Camino, which he returned to the beloved role of Jesse Pinkman, which I thought El Camino was he didn't, he was on Westworld, and I thought he's also on this other thing called Truth Be Told. I didn't watch Truth Be Told, but I did watch Westworld. Yes, I'm still a rabid fan of that show. And I will say this, I didn't have confidence that Aaron Paul would be able to hang. He actually was one of the best things on that show this season. So while I don't think it was necessarily Emmy worthy, I think of all those shows, I think his performance on Westworld was the best. And if he had any chance, it should have been that, but I don't think that was a role worth nomination. They thought A Snub was The Leading Ladies of Unbelievable. Though the Netflix limited series received a nomination, Caitlin Dever and Merritt Weaver did not. They may have canceled each other out because Toni Collette did pick up a nomination in supporting, despite garnering love during the Winter Awards season in a timely tale that elicited extremely emotional performances. Emmy voters did not follow the trend. Well, I didn't watch Unbelievable. I am sorry to say. I saw almost all of the first episode. It was a little troubling, not because it was bad. It was the subject matter. I never went back to it, and I have to because it's supposed to be very good. And I don't know, maybe Emmy voters, I'm not one, obviously, did the same thing. I don't know. They're probably right about the two lead actresses canceling each other out, and Toni Collette is just good in everything she does. So that's it. That's Variety's Snubs and Surprises for the Emmy Awards. I told you where I agreed and disagreed. I think it's just a very strong field of television shows in general and actors up and down this year. And the more content that comes on television, the more quality content comes on, the more these actors get these production companies and they start making the stories that they want to make, and they can put together these teams of high quality prestige showmakers. I don't want to call them necessarily filmmakers, but because they're not features, but showrunners. I think the Emmy Awards are going to get harder, more competitive. Not harder, that's a bad word. More and more competitive because the quality of television is just going up and up. Next, I'm going to talk about how the coronavirus pandemic has affected or is affecting American Idol. I'll be back in a little while. We're going to go pay some bills. Thanks for listening.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right. Those Emmys are a tough field, huh, Jack? That's a tough list. All right, we're back. We're going to talk about American Idol right now and how the coronavirus pandemic has affected that show, or the things that they're going to try to do to work around it. American Idol, they're resuming their auditions, the audition phase of the show, but it's going to be amid the coronavirus pandemic, and they will be held remotely, ABC announced on Friday. This allows the usual Idol Across America tour to expand out and include all 50 states, plus Washington, D.C. for the first time since the show's inception. Auditions for the upcoming fourth season on the Alphabet Network begin on August 10th. And this time around, hopeful contestants can perform across any official audition date. Wow, I don't know how they're going to sort these folks out. Seems like they're going to get swamped. Those auditioning will still receive FaceTime with a show producer, just digitally. This allows everyone to still receive feedback in real time. The show will use custom-built Zoom technology to host this nationwide search for the next singing sensation. While this is the first time the show will be holding auditions this way, Idol is no stranger to remote production, having finished most of its recent seasons that way. Contestants performed from their various homes, with the show's crew and technicians working to make sure that each person had an equal singing field as possible, as equal of a singing field as possible, despite being spread out geographically and having different access to technology, let alone internet speeds for streaming and uploading. The at-home finale helped ABC rank as the number one network of May Sunday nights, winning the coveted 18 to 49 age demographic and drawing the most viewers tuning in at that time, which was 7.3 million viewers. Wow. Well, for those of you who watched or care, the winner last season was Just Sam, and that is capital J, Just Sam. I don't know if that means the person's name. I don't know if that person's a male or female, because it might be a woman named Just with the last name of Sam, or it could be someone named Sam who decided to put Just in front of his name. I don't know, but that person won. This is interesting because they brought up some things that I didn't think about, but obviously are going to be our issues, because not all internet is equal, and not all people, if you're going to be recording at home, not all of your equipment is going to be equal. So you might be very talented, but sound bad because of what you're using, or how the judges see you. If you have a bad camera, or you just have an old computer or a slow internet speed, you might freeze up or something. So that's interesting. Also, even though I know from my past viewing of American Idol, which, trust me, you all, was about 15 years ago, I think is probably the last time I saw an episode of American Idol, especially one of these phases. Even though they had it at just a few cities or a number of cities across the country, they seemed to attract a lot of contestants. And I would imagine that because of travel challenges, they didn't get as many people as they possibly could have. So when it's a deal where you just have to sit down at your computer and get online to audition, I think they're going to be swamped, which, I don't know. It depends how much manpower they have and how quickly they can weed through this thing. I don't know. It might be a first come, first serve somehow, and you get cut off. Be interesting to see. I would think, theoretically, the more talent they have, the larger the pool, the better the contestants. Let's see if that pans out that way. Well, I won't see, because I probably won't be watching, but let's see if this round of American Idol brings us the next Kelly Clarkson or Jennifer Hudson or whomever. All right, this is a story I've been waiting to discuss. Let's break for some good fight breaking news. Alan Dershowitz, legal scholar, Dream Team member of the OJ squad, and Harvard Law School professor emeritus, is a fan of the show The Good Fight. But the famed attorney is preparing to sue Viacom CBS and the producers of the CBS All Access legal drama for referring to him in the final episode of the show's 4th season as a shyster in connection with his representation of the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, who was convicted of soliciting sex with underage girls in 2008, committed suicide last year, in quotes. I put those quotes there. While in federal prison as he awaited trial on new sex trafficking charges. Dershowitz's lawyers, on July 17th, sent a letter to CBS, Good Fight creators and showrunners Robert King and Michelle King, and others connected with the show, demanding that CBS All Access stop airing the content in question, and a retraction of the statement and a public apology for it. Now, just as an aside, I wonder what it's like to be Alan Dershowitz's lawyer. Because if any of you all are familiar with Dershowitz, and he's become kind of ubiquitous over the years, it's kind of hard to follow legal television and not see Alan Dershowitz somewhere along the way. He is somebody like most very good attorneys, seems to be an A-type personality and thinks this or appears to believe he is the smartest man in the room. So I wonder if it's difficult or challenging to be his representative. I wonder if he's coaching you all the time, telling you what to do, even though you might be giving him different advice. I don't know. It's just something I thought about. Here is a quote. Quote, "Clearly, the dialogue and the context in which it is made, the words loaded with innuendo such as massage, Epstein, and the Virgin Islands, in combination with the word shyster, falsely suggests that Professor Dershowitz engaged in sexual conduct, i.e. a massage, in quotes, with an underage girl associated with Epstein, and is crooked, unscrupulous, and lying about it, i.e. a shyster," Ansari wrote. Now, Ansari is his attorney, Professor Dershowitz, that is. Jonathan Anchnell, Viacom CBS Media Network's Executive Vice President and General Counsel, responded with a letter he sent on July 28th that outlined CBS's defense of the episode and its references to Dershowitz. Here's the quote. Quote, "In other words, as one might explain to a small child, the series, its characters, and the things they say are all make-believe. People don't watch the series for factual information about Professor Dershowitz or anyone else," Anschel wrote. End quote. Or, end quote, Anschel wrote. In the episode, the gang discovers who killed Jeffrey Epstein. That's the title of the episode, which debuted on May 27th. Fictional criminal defense attorney character Benjamin Defoe, played by guest star David Alford, is depicted as having previously represented Epstein before Dershowitz. The episode makes several references to Dershowitz in connection with Epstein. Ansari's letter focuses on one exchange that the Defoe character has with his lawyers, Diane Lockhart, that's character played by Christine Baranski, and Liz Reddick, and that's played by Audra McDonald, about losing Epstein as a client. In the most meta-legal sense, the dialogue anticipates real-life legal action from Dershowitz. Now here is the statement from the character in question, Defoe. Quote, "Probably the time he ditched me for Dershowitz, at least I didn't get a massage like that shyster. And for the purposes of my potential lawsuit, shyster is just my opinion, not a statement of fact." End quote. That's what the Defoe character says in the episode. Dershowitz told Variety, that's where I got this part of my reporting, or their reporting. Dershowitz told Variety that The Good Fight, the show, and other contemporary dramas that weave fictional characters and real-life public figures into their stories are treading on very shaky ground when it comes to definite defamation concerns. Quote, "The idea that a fictional character can get away with defaming somebody is really a new one," end quote, Dershowitz said. Now Dershowitz continued, "You either have to have an entirely fictional account in which they make up the names of everybody, or a truthful account. You can't mix the genres. When you mix the genres, the law of defamation applies," end quote. Now, Ansari's letter, remember Ansari is Dershowitz's attorney, his letter notes that the decision to include a "just my opinion" into the Defoe character's dialogue only adds to the argument that Viacom CBS and the show was aware that the statement was defamatory. Here's a quote. "It is indicative that CBS knew that the statements were defamatory, yet sought, albeit weakly, to skirt liability, and it is akin to showing a consciousness of guilt," Ansari wrote. Now, Anschell's letter notes that Dershowitz himself has acknowledged that he once received a massage at one of Epstein's homes. Here's a quote. In fairness, Professor Dershowitz claimed that he kept his underwear on during the massage, a more benign mental image than what the mind might otherwise conjure. So at least there's that. End quote. That's what Anschell wrote in his response letter. As for the use of the term shyster, Anschell defended it as spoken by a fictional character and expressly phrased as an opinion. He cites as legal support the recent dismissal of a lawsuit against FX Networks brought by movie legend Olivia de Havilland, who objected to her depiction in the 2017 limited series Feud, Betty and Joan. Olivia de Havilland just passed, by the way, for those of you who don't know. Here's a quote. We are confident that no viewer would conclude that Professor Dershowitz is a shyster based on the one line of opinion from a fictional character on the series, as opposed to the real-life, factual publications that have called him exactly that, Anschell wrote. Dershowitz noted that the legal issues stemming from a blend of fact and fiction are also the crux of a lawsuit filed in March by the former Manhattan prosecutor Linda Fairstein against Netflix over her depiction in the 2019 limited series When They See Us, about the wrongful convictions of 5 black men who became known as the Central Park Five. Dershowitz said that he will take his battle against the good fight to court if CBS Viacom continues to balk at his demand for an apology and retraction, even though he is generally a fan of the stylish drama revolving around legal eagles in Chicago. Quote, my family and I have watched it and enjoyed it, Dershowitz said. Dershowitz has come in for strong criticism in his association with Epstein, who faced horrifying allegations that he was a serial predator of underage girls. Dershowitz has been sued by an Epstein victim who accused him of sexual misconduct, which he has vehemently denied. Last November, Dershowitz countersued Virginia Giuffre. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. Excuse me, Miss Virginia, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, saying her claims had caused him severe emotional distress. Dershowitz vowed to press his case against Viacom, CBS, and the good fight as a matter of principle. Quote, I am an honest and honorable lawyer who represents controversial clients that people don't like, Dershowitz says. Nobody's going to call me a shyster and get away with it. If the people at CBS are decent people, they will issue an apology and withdraw the episode or that part of the episode. If they don't, I'll see them in court. End quote. Well, I think this is going to be a very interesting case. As somebody who is not a lawyer, I work with contracts and real estate, but I have several attorneys in my family, several friends who are attorneys, have an interest in law. As much as I am, just as a matter of my personal ruling, I believe I'm right now of a mind to lean on the side of CBS Viacom. I understand that this is not a frivolous lawsuit. I think that Alan Dershowitz does have a case that he can make in court. I don't hope that this case wins because, ironically, this is the type of case that Alan Dershowitz would take on behalf of CBS Viacom to forward their ability to express themselves artistically and, somewhat, this would come under, it's not so much, this is what people misunderstand. The First Amendment, freedom of speech, has to do with you being able to express yourself without coming under the thumb of the government. Being able to say Alan Dershowitz is something, any type of name, and unless you're making a threat on the life or to harm Alan Dershowitz, you're able to say that without going to jail. But we have a civil court that allows Alan Dershowitz to sue you for saying that. That doesn't come under First Amendment. So the First Amendment doesn't apply here. However, I want artists to be able to express themselves this way with real public figures if they're mixed in with fictional characters, and especially a character like Alan Dershowitz, who's had all kinds of things said about him in the press by real people. So I don't see why this fake person, this false person can't be able to say it. But it'll be interesting to see how this ruling goes forward. I think, again, this is one of these situations where Alan Dershowitz and clients that he has represented and currently represent try to throw their weight around in their influence to try to intimidate people into doing things that they don't want to do. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting case. We'll see what happens next. I'm going to talk about, guess what? I'm going to talk about movies next year and what has happened to the schedule this year, how it's going to affect next year, and possibly your streaming options. Don't go away. Go get some refreshments. I'll be back after we pay some bills. Thanks for listening. Nothing like being sued by a lawyer, huh, Jeff? Yeah. All right, we're back. This is our last segment, and we got a lot of stuff to cover, and I got a special announcement at the end. Setting theatrical schedules has never been simple in the movies, as you know from listening to me on this podcast. But as the pandemic pushes releases into 2021 and beyond, distributors say it's like playing fourth-dimensional chess on acid. On March 4th, MGM's James Bond film, No Time to Die, became the first Hollywood tentpole in the COVID-19 era to delay its theatrical release. The 25th installment of the spy franchise moved from early April to Thanksgiving. And at the time, the decision seemed drastic. Theaters were still open in the U.S., and the World Health Organization hadn't declared the novel coronavirus outbreak a pandemic. But the move proved to be a bellwether for the coming chaos. Theaters in the U.S. soon shuttered. Cinemas in China, where the pandemic began, had gone dark in late January, but studios rushed to rearrange their slates in what had been the biggest disruption to the release calendar in Hollywood history. The migration, which is ongoing, it's still happening, will have implications for years to come and will make 2021 particularly crowded. Choosing a movie's date is a vital part of the process. It's common for the fiercely competitive studios to select a date 2 or 3 years out for their bigger films, and sometimes even farther into the future. No one could have imagined the calendar's carnage as theaters remain closed amid the devastating surge of cases across the U.S. and in some overseas territories. On July 24th, Disney said it was taking tentpole Mulan off the calendar and pushing back its Avatar and Star Wars films by a year through 2028. Avatar 2 moves from December 2021 to December 2022. A few days earlier, Warner Brothers had likewise removed Christopher Nolan's Tenet before announcing that the tentpole will begin an overseas rollout August 26th, followed by select U.S. cities September 3rd. Paramount made a major announcement July 24th, saying it was pushing marquee titles A Quiet Place Part 2 from Labor Day to April and Top Gun Maverick from Christmas to June. Top Gun Maverick could be pushed all the way to 2028 as far as I'm concerned. Here's a quote. "We've never faced such uncertainty, which has resulted in the most fluid dating situation ever," says Chris Aronson, president of domestic distribution at Paramount. He continues, "The whole supply chain has been impacted." Another top distribution executive was a little bit more colorful in his description of the complicated climate, saying, "It's like playing four-dimensional chess on acid," which I said before. Now, under normal circumstances, usually when you move a movie suddenly or within weeks or a few months of its release, it means that something's wrong with the movie. You know, they are either going to do some reshoots or it just bombed in, focus groups or something. But that hasn't been the case here. Mulan and Tenet each has moved no fewer than 3 times because of the pandemic. Quote, "This has upended everything we know about the sanctity of the release calendar," says Paul DeGerberon of ComScore. ComScore is a company that is a consulting firm. It's a media consulting firm that tracks things like release dates and other marketing information. To make a long story short, that's what they do. That's why their opinion is important. Release date changes for huge movies have become commonplace and barely raise the blood pressure. Everyone has come to expect that everything is uncertain. Sources say it was preferable to unschedule Tenet and Mulan for now instead of announcing new dates and having to move them again. Quote, I think everything is in flux until Tenet goes, says Eric Handler, a Wall Street analyst with MKM Partners. He continues, other studios will watch to see how many people show up. That could cause some more delays. And that's my point about Tenet and Mulan. I think when the case study is done at about this time, Tenet and Mulan are going to be seen as the movies that will have primed the pump for what's left of the theater-going public or the theater industry. But there are also going to be movies that didn't do as well as they could have, given that they're good movies. Again, that's the given. I'm assuming at least Tenet is. If they're bad movies, well, then they're just bad movies. Remaining 2020 tentpoles on the calendar include Wonder Woman 1984, Black Widow, No Time to Die, Free Guy, which is a science fiction comedy with Ryan Reynolds. He's producing that movie as well, because now he's a big player after Deadpool, and Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Now, as far as Mulan, that's not clear yet when Disney plans to release that. Early in the pandemic, many 2020 epic pictures gave up on this year, including The Eternals, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I think is going to be a bomb too, the Venom sequel, Let There Be Carnage, F9, that's one of the Fast and Furious pictures, Minions, The Rise of Gru, In the Heights, and Jungle Cruise, all of which are now set for the first 3 quarters of 2021. Here's a quote, next year has become incredibly crowded, but we don't know if the film set toward the end of the year will be able to finish production, said Handler. The clock is ticking with every day that goes by. With A Quiet Place 2 and Top Gun Maverick now in the 2021 mix, competition will be even fiercer, says the guy from ComScore, Durgarbejian. And I'm mispronouncing his name again. I mispronounced it earlier, but that's who he works for, ComScore. He says that next year is fast becoming a cage match. And I would agree with him, but I don't think Top Gun Maverick is going to be one of the players in that cage match. Meanwhile, 2022 might not provide much more breathing room because you see this thing has a ripple effect. Avatar 2, the next installments in the Thor, Doctor Strange, and Indiana Jones franchises have been pushed into that year. Okay, just like Maverick, I think the Indiana Jones franchise one, that's not really a player either. I think that one's a bomb anyway. However, industry experts and studio execs expect that some smaller and mid-range titles will continue to go straight to premium VOD, which is video on demand or streaming, in order to lighten the calendar. Now, those of you who listen to this podcast know that your boy right here has been saying that since this thing started. Okay? But I don't only think they're going to go to VOD or video on demand and streaming because there's not going to be a lot of room in the market. I think they're going to go there because there's going to be way too much room in the theaters. You know, I think that people are going to want to watch movies at home more, and that going to the theater is going to be more of a tentpole situation. So I'm going to go back to A Quiet Place 2, and I'm not ragging on A Quiet Place 2. I thought it was A Quiet Place was a good movie. But A Quiet Place 2 doesn't need to be seen in the theater. People are going to watch that movie in the darkness of their basements, where it will be really scary and they can eat better food for less money. That's what I believe. They're going to want to see probably F9 or 4 or some of these other movies on large screens because they have sensational special effects and sound design, and it will be a lot better to see them on a big screen. Even bigger movies could see shorter runs. On July 28th, mega chain AMC Theaters said it will allow Universal titles to be made available on premium video on demand after just 17 days. I reported that last show. Here's a quote. There's going to be a redefinition of what is theatrical and what is not, says one top executive who's spending more time than ever reviewing slots. Sounds like he's spending more time than ever listening to this podcast. He says that a proliferation of 2023 dates are being snatched up for untitled event films. Think of it as insurance, says one movie executive. Well, I'm just saying that they're going to have to start scheduling these big, what they call tentpole movies, out farther and farther because they're going to need space in between them. But I think they're going to be able to do that because, like this, they said in this article, and like I've been saying for months now, these smaller to mid-sized films, and I'll put a dollar value on them, $60 million and less, are going to go to video on demand and streaming, especially if they don't need that big venue. They don't need to be, a big screen and huge speakers to be appreciated. My prime example is A Quiet Place 2. And right before I started recording this segment, the BAFTA Award winners were announced, or at least I got them in my email box. So I'm going to go over some of this information since Netflix and Hulu and other streaming services are now bringing us more British content than ever before. I thought I would cover some of these awards in the interest of time. However, I selected the programs that are more familiar to American audiences. And I know I have many international listeners, so I want to emphasize that I'm doing this in the interest of time, and over half my audience is American, so I wanted to mention things that everyone could relate to and shows that most people have seen or at least heard of. HBO and Sky Atlantic's Chernobyl and Channel 4's Stath Lets Flats, and I know some of you Americans have not heard of that, and Channel 4 and Netflix's End of the Effing World emerged with 2 BAFTAs apiece at this year's awards. Chernobyl won for miniseries and leading actor for Jared Harris, adding 2 prizes to its existing haul of 7 awards at the BAFTA TV Craft Awards earlier this month. Meanwhile, BAFTA's leading actress award was won by Glenda Jackson for her performance in the BBC's Elizabeth is Missing, her first television role for more than 25 years, and the second BAFTA of her career. Her first BAFTA was for Sunday Bloody Sunday in 1972. Meanwhile, Channel 4 and Netflix's End of the Effing World also received prizes for drama series and Best Supporting Actress for first-time nominee Naomi Ackie. Now, she was in the second season, which I've yet to see, but the first season was fantastic, and I will be watching the second season. Will Sharp, another first-time winner, won for his performance in BBC and Netflix's Guri Haji in the supporting actor category, while Mo Gilligan won his first BAFTA for entertainment performance for The Latest Show with Mo Gilligan. And first-time nominee Sian Clifford won in the female performance in a comedy program for playing Claire, the older sister, in Fleabag, which I have yet to watch also. Ava DuVernay won her second BAFTA of her career for When They See Us, the U.S. crime drama series based on the true story of the Central Park Five in the international category. It follows with her win for 13th, which won Best Documentary at the 2017 British Academy Film Awards, and she got an honorary BAFTA for that. Leaving Neverland received a BAFTA for factual series, while The Last Survivors won single documentary, and The Yorkshire Ripper Files, a very British crime story, won specialist factual. I love British awards because we would never have an award here called Specialist Factual, which I really like. The special award was presented to Idris Elba in recognition of his exceptional career and his commitment to championing diversity and new talent in the industry. The actor, writer, director, and producer received video messages from Matthew McConaughey, Taraji P. Henson, and Ruth Wilson, among others. And those are the only awards I'm going to go over. But I thought it was interesting because a lot of these productions I would have never heard of if it weren't for Netflix. And that's why I think Netflix is and will remain the king for a little while, because, or quite a little while, because of their embracing of the world market for entertainment. I think they've done a fantastic job, as I've said several times on this podcast. And my special announcement is this. My show is now going to be going from a twice-a-week show to a once-a-week show, and it's going to drop. It will now be dropping just once a week on Saturdays instead of on the normal Tuesday and Fridays, as it has been. And I know this is heartbreaking news for some. Others are probably like saying, yeah, once is enough, Howard. But because of some professional commitments that I have, I will only be able to produce one show a week. And so that's why it's happening. If we hire another host to produce the second show, I'll let you know. So we may have 2 television podcasts a week, but right now it's going to be once a week on Saturdays. So I really appreciate your listenership, and I will miss doing this twice a week because I really enjoy this show. And with that, that will be it for the GSMC Television Podcast this week. It's brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write us a nice review. We it'll help the show grow, and we would appreciate it if you did give us 5 stars. If you have some feedback for me, and it can be as negative as you want it to be, you can email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. Please keep it as clean as possible because I read all email on air, good or bad. I appreciate the feedback. I listen to it all, and I try to do the best I can to keep you guys coming back. Listen, I know we're in some strange and challenging times right now. Try to pull through this together, folks. We're in a worldwide pandemic. This virus seems to be changing a lot, and we're still trying to figure out how it's transmitted and spread, at least in the good old US of A we are. The rest of you guys seem to have figured it out worldwide. So please, we do know this. You should wash your hands often. Please limit your close-up and personal interaction with people if you can. Wear a mask if when you go out of the house or when you're up close talking to people. They're saying now you should maybe wear goggles or protect your eyes if that is at all possible for you to do. But please do the best you can, and we'll get through this thing together. Until we meet again, please stream with care. Jack and I love you guys. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you on Saturday. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.